Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to know the science of turning your thoughts into things, then do we have the Mind to Matter show for you. Woo! Today I'll be talking with Dawson Church, owner of the world's most boisterous laugh, award-winning author of the Genie in Your Genes, EFT Tapping expert, energy healing expert and researcher, the editor of Energy Psychology, and the author of one of the most brilliant, important, and must-read books. You can't pry this out of my dead, dying fingers, even if you try. Got it on air, Dawson. On the science of mind and matter, Mind to Matter. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about the astonishing science of how your brain creates material reality. That, plus we'll talk about Howard Elementary School, Molokai nightlife, musicals and the Book of Mormon, 1983 Ford Econolines, Geiger counters and fire alarms, French words and stickers, Mystery Money in the Beach, June 12th, 1982, and what in the world a 1974 Jensen Healy has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome back to the show, Dawson. Are you ready to shine?
I certainly am, Michael. Shine with you and shine with everyone in this amazing community.
Woohoo! So we've been having a lengthy conversation beforehand. I don't know if we're going to go sweat lodge. I don't know where we're going to go with this. Maybe where we first start, way back in the beginning, how'd the idea for this book come into inception?
You know, it's really interesting how this book began because I wasn't a believer in that whole idea. I knew that our thoughts create certain things. Like, obviously, if you are stressed, your body is going to create more molecules like adrenaline and cortisol. So that really was an easy proposition. It's really obvious that you can generate those molecules by thought and by mind. But when I began to look into the research on how we create things outside of our bodies, how we affect molecules outside of our bodies, I was absolutely blown away by the science showing we can and do that. And so I used to think, Michael, that I had been privileged to have one big idea in my life. That big idea was about 15 years ago. I got that emotions drive gene expression. And this was a time when the idea was, just not really out there. And I began to look at all the science between having a feeling and having a gene turn on and off. And so the first edition of Genie in Your Genes, I said, I believe this happens and here's why. So I had this really powerful idea that I thought, wow, I'm so privileged, universe, to have this one big idea in my life. I'm so thankful to have written one really important book in my life. Thank you, universe. I thought, there's no way I'd ever get another big idea like that. Lightning one strike in the same place twice. And then when I began to look into the science, because initially, people talk about thoughts to things as a metaphysical idea. I'd heard that, but I thought there's not much science behind that. When I began to look at study after study, each link in the chain between thought and thing, I was like absolutely blown away. And I realized I had to write this really ambitious book and just lay it all out, explain it to people, because as you look at the studies one after the other, there is a causal chain from what you think, what you feel, what you experience, your core beliefs, to the things that happen all around you. So, I was amazed at the science behind how this works, and it's a fact. It's just there in those 400 studies. It's just like a fact.
So let's go through. We're going to whip through each chapter of your book fairly quickly. There's no way we can cover a fraction of the 400 studies. And first off, I want to talk about microtubules and neural change. How fast is this taking place?
We used to think of our brains as being static. The old model was that your brain grew very rapidly in the first 17, 18 years of your life, and you had the same brain thereafter. We now know that that's completely wrong. Our brains are shifting all the time. We're creating an average of one new neuron a second. We're creating an average of 810,000 new cells every second in our bodies, and many of those are neurons. And so our brains are shifting rapidly, and microtubules used to be seen as just the structural elements that gave cells their rigid shape. They look like girders in a building. They are circular. They're composed of molecules called tubulin. And so we knew for a long time, we thought we knew what they did was they just were like these girders that hold up the cell and give it its shape. But at a certain point, researchers began to look into the whole idea of what hollow resonant things do. Mm-hmm. And it's like a drum. When you beat on that drum, when you take that hollow shape, it's a resonant chamber. And so we began to realize that these microtubules were much less like girders and much more like antennae. And then research began to show that they are part of the cell's biological signaling system. And so they're antennae. And then if they're antennae, what are they attuned to? Where is the signal coming from? And so a role has been proposed for microtubules in coordinating really complex actions. Like right now, I'm sitting here, I'm breathing. My body's doing 100,000 processes per second in each cell. How does it coordinate all this activity? It does it through signaling, and it looks like microtubules are a key component of that signaling by picking up the signals body-wide in really, really short periods of time, like through the speed of light or even possibly faster through these waves called scalar waves. So we now realize that there are these resonant structures in our cells that are picking up signals, and they're picking up signals that are both local in our bodies and also non-local beyond our bodies. And there are lots of these microtubules in every cell. Neurons can have 100,000 of these things in them or more. And so we are signaling other elements of the universe. The universe is signaling us, and we have these resonant structures down to the level of each cell that are picking up and receiving these signals.
It almost makes me think, if I think of muscle, I think of the real strength in the muscle isn't the muscle, it's the myofascia. And so when I think of the brain, I'm drawing a connection between the myofascia and the microtubules and saying we thought it's the brain, but it may actually be the microtubules.
Yes, and the brain, and the picture that emerges in the research I describe in the book is the brain is much more like a transducer. Mm-hmm. It's much more like your screen in front of you. So there's a screen there, you have a device in front of you, you're receiving a signal from that device, but the signal doesn't come from that device. It comes from somewhere else, and it is then turned into a meaningful, viewable image by that device. That's what the brain does. It's receiving consciousness and translating consciousness into what we see all around us, but it's not creating consciousness in the way in which we used to think.
Awesome, awesome. So, talking about not thinking about the brain the way we used to think, tell us about Graham Phillips, the Australian astrophysicist and TV journalist.
I use Graham Phillips as an example in chapter 1, and throughout the book, I tell stories because the science is great, it's interesting, the studies are really fascinating, but then how people actually use this in their lives and the changes they produce, that's where it goes from the abstract to the concrete. And so Graham Phillips was he was not a believer, Michael. He was not a believer in meditation or EFT tapping or mindfulness or any of the stuff that we talk about. And he was just an agnostic. But he'd read some studies about meditation and thought, there's some science behind this. What would happen to me if I were to take this practice on? Might I change? And he's a pretty aggressive guy. He's a hard-bitten journalist. Mm-hmm. And he thought, well, I'll enroll for this 8-week meditation program and see if I change. So on day 1 of the program, he went into Monash University, and a biologist called Richard Chambers examined him. He did a whole battery of tests. They put him in an MRI. They measured the volume of all the parts of his brain. He then, on day 2, began his meditation and mindfulness journey. After 2 weeks, he began to notice behavioral changes. He was no longer this really aggressive guy. He was a much more mellow guy. He wasn't having episodes of road rage and screaming at his colleagues at work anymore. He was really chilling out. After 8 weeks, they took him back to the lab and they measured brain volume, reflexes, behavior, all kinds of characteristics a second time after 8 weeks. And parts of his brain had actually grown measurably in 8 weeks by 2%, 3%, 5%, 6% in only 2 months. But the part of his brain that had grown the most is a part called the dentate gyrus. Now, the dentate gyrus is really interesting. It's a part of the memory and learning center of the brain, and its job is to coordinate emotional regulation across all the different parts of the brain. And emotional regulation is when you get annoyed, when there's a red light that takes too long. Do you explode? When somebody cuts in front of you in traffic, do you have road rage? When your colleague says something that annoys you, do you scream at them? When your kid says something, when your partner says something, when people around you do things that irritate you, are you this explosive personality, or do you have this capacity of emotional dampening? And that part of his brain, the dentate gyrus, that part of his brain grew in 8 weeks by 22.8%. Now, think about that. That's a part of your brain growing by 22.8% in just 8 weeks of mindfulness practices. So we realize now our brains are not that static textbook image we saw in those medical textbooks or biology textbooks. They are just reshaping themselves. We may look the same on the outside, but our brains are boiling with change all the time based on our behavior. We're literally creating the hardware of our brains using the software of our minds. So I have many stories like this throughout the book, and they are astonishing in the scope and the scale and the speed at which we're producing change in our bodies and our brains by our practices, by our thoughts, by our behavior.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to talk about how we begin to shape the brain. I was going back and forth, but I hear that I have to ask about it. Bill Bengston, an amazing energy healer who worked with mice, but he worked with mice because his I don't know if we call it professor or leader of the experiment bailed on him, and he completely changed his brain to be able to do this.
You know, Bill is a crazy guy. I love Bill. I just spent a week with him.
And we've had him on the show too, and I love him, love him, love him.
He's a real iconoclast. He is a university professor, but he's a skeptic still about energy healing. He's a really inquiring mind. And so, yeah, he had arranged to do an experiment with a well-known energy healer. And then what happened was that they were doing this experiment with laboratory mice. And this is a kind of mice that are injected with a substance that causes tumors. And then after about 3 weeks, the mice die. And then cancer researchers use these mice to try and experiment with different things that might inhibit the growth of tumors. And so Bill had arranged this experiment, and then they'd ordered the mice, and then he had his healer all set up to come and heal the mice. And then the mice didn't arrive they were delayed a week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. And so the healer bailed on him. And there he was with an experiment. And then finally the mice were there and no healer. So the other guy running the experiment said, well, Bill, why don't you be the healer? And Bill was like, me? I don't know much about healing, but I'll give it a try. So Bill's belief was that if he used his healing touch kind of method on these mice, they would not develop cancer. So they put one group of mice, the control group, in a different lab, and didn't give them energy healing, put Bill's mice in Bill's lab, and he did give them healing every day. He held their cages. And there's a picture in the book of him holding the mouse cage. And so he was doing this every day, and his thought was, okay, well, I'm going to heal these mice, and the mice then won't get cancer. But by the end of the first week, the tumors began to appear. And these are not little tiny tumors inside the mice. These are big visible tumors. Eventually, the tumor is so large, it actually kills the mice it crushes their internal organs. These are big, huge tumors that grow outside the mice. So the tumors began to grow. By the end of the second week, Bill was like seeing these mice with tumors he was working on. And he then just called the other experimenter and said, it's just time to declare this whole experiment a total failure. All my mice have tumors, and the healing did not succeed in preventing the tumors in the mice. And the other guy said, well, let's just keep on going, because after the injection, the longest a mouse ever lives is 27 days. And they all are dead within that time period. It's only another week and a half away from now. And I've noticed that even though your mice have these tumors, they seem to be very healthy. They're running around their cages. They have lots of energy. They're eating normally. They are using their little mice wheels to exercise themselves. Whereas I've gone over to the control group in the other lab, and those mice are all huddled together there. They're low energy. One's already died. Your mice seem really healthy despite the tumors. So just keep on doing it. So Bill just kept on plugging away, doing his energy healing. After 24, 25 days, the tumors began to dry up, and the mice lived 28 days. Now, no mouse had ever lived 28 days after the injection. And they lived to day 29 and 30 and 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. The tumors just dried up, fell off. The mice regrew their healthy coats and lived the entire lifespan of a mouse. Not only that, after that, they were immune from cancer. They could no longer get cancer, even when injected with this cancer causing agent. So there are now, I think, 10 trials like that, 10 randomized controlled trials. Bill and his method. He now is doing much more ambitious experiments. It's just powerful to see that energy can heal in that way.
Woohoo! And he reshaped his brain in a sense for healing. How do we begin to reshape our brains?
I'll tell you the story of a friend of mine. His name is Beth, and she is coming out with a book about this, so it's no secret she did this. But Beth had a diagnosis. This is last June. Actually, exactly a year ago, she got this diagnosis of breast cancer. She had a large tumor in one of her breasts, and it has spread to the lymph nodes under her arms. So these lymph nodes, which usually clear, were now full of cancer cells. Also, they later noticed 3 spots on her lung. So it looked like the cancer was now metastasizing throughout her body, as well as the primary tumor in her breast. And she emailed me and called me in really a panic. And she said, what do I do? I've got this diagnosis. She'd also had a gene test, and the gene test revealed 8 defective genes. And so now she not only has this cancer diagnosis, she has this belief that I'm doomed. I have 8 defective genes, which predispose me to breast cancer.
I'm going to put defective in quotes. I'm putting big air quotes here.
Absolutely. And so we worked on that core belief. I said, hey, it's not the genes. The epigenetics of this is which genes are turned on, which genes are turned off, and you can shift all kinds of genes with your beliefs, with your mind. So she did a whole bunch of different things. First of all, she elected not to get conventional treatment. Now, that's not the right choice for everybody. It was the right choice for her. She said, I'm not going to even get a biopsy. Because that could liberate cancer cells from the primary tumor. I'm just going to use scanning to monitor the tumor. She got totally serious about reducing the stress in her life. She simply deleted every single activity that caused her stress. She also she had a pretty healthy diet, but she'd been eating the occasional chocolate fudge brownie and
Oh, Dawson.
pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. And she just cut out absolutely everything other than those healthy things in her diet. She had us do surrogate work with her. I did surrogate work where I did surrogate EFT tapping with my wife as her surrogate. So we would tap and my wife would say, I am Beth, and I believe that. And she'd just go ahead and make up things that Beth might be thinking or fearing. I've been told that I have 8 defective genes, and even though I've been told this, I love and accept myself. So we were doing this kind of surrogate healing for Beth. She was getting energy healing from people. She went and did intensive qigong, and she began to practice all of these things in her life: meditation, EFT tapping, qigong, cleaning up her diet, reducing her stress. By later on, I think in August, she had another scan, and that lump was still there in her breast. But one of the doctors, I think she got like 3 different opinions. One of the doctors said, that looks to me as though it's not living tissue. It looks necrotic. It looks like a dead cancerous mass. And they're just dead cells there. And your body is then just going to flush them out. And all of her lymph nodes had cleared up. At that point, there was no more cancer in lymph nodes. And so by September, now again, June, she got the diagnosis and immediately did all this stuff, energy healing for her body. July, August, September, 3 months later, she had scans, she had blood work, she was cancer-free. Energy healing. So changing your mind, changing your beliefs, changing your brain, and it then shifts your body dramatically. So I would strongly urge people of any kind of serious diagnosis is look at the role energy healing can play in your life. Don't discard modern medicine. I love modern medicine. Modern medicine, but she had really good doctors as well, and they were monitoring her progress. And so you get the best of all possible worlds, the best of allopathic medicine, the best of natural medicine, but then look at what you can do, how you can change your mind, change your brain, change your belief, change your practices, and then shift your body as a result.
Woohoo! So confession here. We had on a dear friend of yours, Dean Radin, a few months back.
Yes.
And we love him. And at the end, we ended up having a talk on, he brought it up, I think, and I just went with it, on transmuting the energy of donuts. And so this morning, Jessica and I split a chocolate donut, aka Dean Radin, before the show. So before we did the show, you placed your hands over your heart as we went into a state of coherence before we started, and you went into a place of prayer. What's the benefit of placing our hands over our heart and feeling love when we wake in the morning?
I think that bringing intention to everything you do is powerful. And we were intending before we began that everyone who watches this, who hears this, will be blessed and will be inspired to make changes in their lives. Don't wait till you have cancer. Don't wait till you have a major diagnosis like diabetes or heart disease. Do it now. Do these things right now. And so placing your hands over your heart is a physical cue. Now, I believe in regular spiritual and psychotherapy practices. I think cognitive therapy is effective. I think talk therapy can be effective. But if you try and anchor therapeutic change in the mind alone, I think it's much less effective than anchoring it in the body. So change your mind, change your beliefs, but anchor that in physical change. When I put my hand over my heart and I breathe and I visualize everyone watching and I imagine them all being loved and blessed and inspired by this, that's anchoring that in a somatic, kinesthetic, body-based experience. And that's why therapies like EMDR, which uses eye movements and tapping, EFT, which uses tapping and eye movements, other kinds of somatic therapies are so really important. So if you wake up in the morning, cross your hands over your heart. I also have you just tap, usually with the hand closest to your heart, then reverse and tap with the other hand as well. We also in EFT have you tap on 12 acupuncture points. That is so powerful in anchoring those beliefs and that change, not just in your psychology, in your body as well. And when you have your body and your mind and your spirit and your emotions all moving in the same direction, there's a great term from NLP called congruence. You are then congruent behind your intentions. And that's when real change happens. But if you have your body going one direction, your mind going in another, your body suffering, we were talking about you being in a sweat lodge yesterday. And again, the body is going to go through stuff. And part of it is letting the body go through its experience. Sometimes yesterday, actually, I was doing something scary. I was paddleboarding, the new paddleboard, and there was this railroad bridge. And I got really panicked paddleboarding under this railroad bridge. I just kept on breathing and affirming as I paddleboarded underneath it. So again, it's feeling the adrenaline rising, feeling the cortisol rising, feel the panic rising, and then tuning in to your higher power, tuning in to what I call in the book, I call it non-local mind. You let go of your local mind. Your local mind in the sweat lodge says, I'm going to die. Your local mind, when you're paddleboarding, says, that's a scary bridge I'm paddling under. And you tune into non-local mind and affirm that all is well. And you then live your local experience based on non-local mind. You let go of that panic, then the cortisol subsides, the adrenaline goes away. If you're in the sweat lodge, you get overfeeding, you're going to die. And you then transcend and move into this union of local and non-local mind. You're then living your local life as an expression of non-local mind, just the way the birds do and the trees do. You know, the trees don't need a memo from God saying, okay, it's spring, it's time to bud now. The birds, and they're flying in that flock, it's not like they're having a committee meeting saying, gee, do we turn left or do we turn right over here?
you may have done this before, but we were living on Emerald Isle, southernmost barrier island last year, North Carolina. And what I would do is I would close my eyes when I would see a flock of birds, and I would try to tune in with the birds and feel which direction. And you would start to be able to feel, and you'd open your eyes for confirmation, and you would feel the swoop as if you're going along with them.
Try that sometimes. Anyone watching or listening here, try that sometime. Tune into birds if you're swimming in the ocean and you see a whole school of fish. Try just tuning into them, and you'll find you can, and you then become part of them. They also then don't perceive you as a. When I go and swim with the dolphins every year, and people say, "Gee, Dawson," they have all these photographs of me swimming with dolphins, and people say, "Gee, Dawson, there were 12 people swimming there, and the dolphins really swam up close to you, and they were looking at you, and you were interacting with them, and they weren't interacting with the other 11 people in the group. I wonder why, And the reason why is because I'm tuning into them. I'm swimming like a dolphin. I'm tuning into them energetically. My wife and I, we tune our hearts to the dolphins and the whales before we go there. Like we'll go on a whale watching trip, and all the other whale watching boats will come back, and they'll have seen 3 whales a mile away. We'll have seen whales 100 yards away and 8 of them, and they're interacting with the boat, because why do we see ourselves? Okay, ask yourself this question: why would you see yourself as not in coordination with nature the same way the dolphins are, the birds are, the fish are, the trees are? Why not live as part of this emergent phenomenon? And we talk a lot about that's the field of science is called emergence. And emergence is the emergence of order spontaneously out of complex interactive systems. And if nature could do that for the birds and the fish and the dolphins and the trees, how about if it could do that and was looking to do that for you today in absolutely every single detail of your life? Now, Michael, in the book, I talk a lot about synchronicity. There's a whole chapter on synchronicity. I talk about big synchronicities in my life, but I don't talk in the book about small synchronicities. And an example of one is this. I'll be in the grocery store doing my grocery shopping, and I'll buy a bunch of different things, and then I'll get this intuitive hit to buy Kleenex. Now, my left brain, which is really smart, then says, I don't need Kleenex. It's not on my shopping list. And I noticed there was the Kleenex in the guest bathroom. There was a Kleenex in there. There was a Kleenex in the master bathroom. And so the guest bathroom Kleenex was not empty. The master bathroom Kleenex was not empty. And in the next to the bed, there was a third box of Kleenex. That box was not empty as well. So I know for a fact, mentally, in my smart left brain, that I have 3 Kleenex boxes in the house. None of them are empty. I do not need to buy Kleenex. So I won't buy Kleenex. I'll get home, and I'll walk over, and sure enough, there's a Kleenex popping out of the guest bathroom Kleenex box. I'll pull it out, and it's the last Kleenex. And I'll go over to the master bathroom and pull that one out. It's the last Kleenex. And I'll walk over to the bedroom and pull it out, and I have 3 empty Kleenex boxes. So what astonishes me is this great synchronous universe in emergence, in consciousness, non-local mind, directs us in huge ways, like career and love and money and health. It directs us in all these mega ways. But the astonishing thing to me is when you're living a synchronous life, it's guiding you down to the level of being in the store and getting that intuitive nudge to buy Kleenex. Now, why on earth the universe should care that my life works out that way on that kind of a small scale? I'm looking at the universe and saying, hey, don't you have, big flocks of 4 million starlings to coordinate and the migration of the humpback whales, and you really care about whether I have Kleenex or not? But it does.
I was there shopping yesterday, and I'm looking at a bunch of granola, and I'm going, why am I just staring at the granola? They all have canola oil. I don't want canola oil. They have safflower oil. I don't want safflower oil. Give me something without an inflammatory factor. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, why am I even, you've got to read the Bear to Nature. The Bear to Nature all have canola, canola, canola. Keep reading the Bear to Nature. And I'm like, I give up. All right, I'll pick this one last one up. no oil. I'm like, thank you.
Well, one of the things we do, I take people to Hawaii every year, and we do a 7-day life purpose retreat. It's a pretty powerful event. And so, like, we're asking about big questions like life purpose, but they start with small questions. They start with meditation every day. And then by the third day, we're having them do this as they walk down the buffet line at lunch. And we have them walk down the buffet line and tune in to what their body needs. Now, this is really full of surprises. We have people there who are carnivores, who always eat meat, and who would never have any thought of being vegan or vegetarian. And they'll walk down the whole lunch line, and when they're really tuning into their bodies, they find themselves making a lot of plant-based choices and also having meals and being really happy with no meat. We also have vegans at those retreats who are walking down that line, and suddenly their body is saying, you need that chicken breast. And they're tuning into their bodies. And we start to really respect our bodies and love our bodies, whereas we have this inner GPS guidance signal that is there all the time. The problem is we are too busy, too distracted, too out of the habit of listening to it to be part of that emergent flow of the cosmos. But I show you, as over the 7 chapters of the book, how the last 2 chapters especially is just tune into that flow. And when you listen, when it realizes you're listening, it starts to work with you and be there for you in a powerful new way.
Awesome. Woohoo! So and I was one of those vegans. After my second NDE, I'd been coming back, had low blood. I had 5 different people's blood going through my veins. And a few months into recovery, my body was saying, you need some bone broth. And I was feeding my cats, if one who just got up and might be asking out of the studio in a moment, I was feeding my cats meat and going, for some reason, I feel a calling for this. And I ended up eating meat for a few months. It's what my body needed because I tuned into that. Let's go from there. Let's talk about how emotions organize our environment. And I am fascinated now by gamma and delta, and in particular, gamma bursts. Why am I geeking out on this so much?
Well, gamma bursts were the gamma is the highest brainwave frequency. It was also the most recently discovered brainwave frequency. The first one was alpha, which was discovered in the 1920s by the guy who invented the EEG. Gamma was developed was discovered much later, and the big series of experiments that put gamma on the map was when Richard Davidson at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, tested Buddhist monks, and they've been meditating for an average of 31 years. Okay, these are serious long meditators, up to 4 hours a day of compassion meditation. And he found that all the happiness areas of their brains were lit up, and then lots and lots of these gamma frequencies in their brains. And so gamma is the signature frequency of insight, inspiration, and happiness. People who are happy, people who are having insights, people who are really calm, they tend to have a lot of gamma. If you hook someone up to an EEG and they're having a panic attack, they have literally 0 gamma going on in their brains. And so gamma is this very, very important wave of insight. I call it the genius wave or the Einstein wave. And in the book, I have a little picture of Einstein, which I associate with gamma. And so gamma is this really amazing wave. What we do, so again, Richard Davidson, Tibetan monks, happy 31 years of meditating 4 hours a day, and they're making gamma. What I'm doing in workshops,
I love it.
I'm taking people who fail at meditation, who say, I can't meditate, I've tried to meditate, I've been to workshops, read books, totally failed. I'm having to do eco meditation and tapping. Mm-hmm. We're setting them down, we're hooking them up to an EEG, and in 4 minutes, they're making gamma. And when I first proposed, I teach at Esalen every year, Esalen Institute, and I first emailed them about, because I teach EFT, but I want to teach meditation as well and train people in this meditation method that in 4 minutes they're making all this gamma. I said, it's really simple to do this. You just do these 7 easy steps. It's called eco meditation, and people are in this inspired state. They're happy. They're in gamma. And they rejected my application. They emailed me back and said, Dr. Church, we are the country's premier meditation site. We have all the top meditation teachers who teach here, and we can assure you it is not that easy to meditate in that way. They turned me down.
Oh,
Now,
excellent.
eventually, they actually did let me go there and teach eco meditation. We did a study of people who were doing that. It's just been published in a peer-reviewed journal, and it shows they had wonderful brainwave changes when they did this, and it was that
Woohoo!
easy. It's not that hard.
And we're going to do an eco meditation before the end. Maybe you can tell us briefly about heart coherence at this point, and we're talking about how energy creates things.
Yeah, well, the fascinating thing about heart coherence is HeartMath has been training people to do heart coherence for a long time. But one of the things we found is that when we would take meditators and then they'd get into meditation, then we'd say, okay, do your regular meditation routine, we found they dropped out of heart coherence. So with
Wow.
eco meditation, we actually train them to induce heart coherence while they're in meditation. It's really, really interesting. And in the book, I have a lot about coherence, mental coherence, physical coherence, because we find that in the book, research shows that people who are intenders, who intend things to happen, like we all want to, be happy, wealthy, wise, disease-free, make $1 million, have the love of our lives, live in wherever it is we want to live. We all have these intentions. And for most people, many of those things don't happen. They affirm, they visualize, and a lot of it doesn't happen. But we found that when you're intending that way, you're usually ineffective. But if you're a meditator, if you are in mental coherence, what happens is you come into physiological coherence as well. And when people who are in coherence intend, their stuff happens often very, very quickly. They're what we call master manifestors, but they're manifesting in that state of coherence. They get into coherence first, and they're one with this emergent reality. So now they're one with the birds and the trees and the dolphins and all the stuff. And then the kinds of intentions you have when you are one with the universe, when you are one with non-local mind, they're not those petty little intentions and desires you have when you're stuck in your old conditioning in local mind. So now you're having elevated emotions and you're having a remarkably powerful experience of being one with non-local mind. And the kinds of intentions you have in that state are one with those emergent properties of the whole universe. And so, of course, they happen easily because you're in flow. You're in flow with the whole of creation, and things you intend then are very different, and then they manifest very easily because you are in that flow. So that's what we find with people who are in that space. They are in coherence, and coherence is essential for effective manifestation.
How would you define coherence for people who are hearing it for the first time?
Very simple. I have lights in the room, light bulbs in the room around me. Some of those 60-watt light bulbs. Turn on that light bulb, and that 60 watts of light flooding out from that light bulb is great. It illuminates the whole room about 10 feet away. So it's incoherent light. It's scattered. Its rays are going out from the bulb in all those directions, and it'll illuminate the whole room, and it'll extend 10 feet away from me. If I take 60 watts and make those light rays all coherent, flowing in the same direction, it's called a laser. That 60-watt laser will cut through a quarter-inch steel plate. That's the difference between incoherent light and coherent light. And that's the difference between incoherent thought. Oh, I'd like to have this, but I'm distracted by all these 40,000 other things, versus a highly coherent person. They're in heart coherence. They're meditating. They've got their whole body in coherence. When they have that thought, gee, I'd love to see that happen. It can happen just like that.
Woohoo! So speaking about energy coherence and people in energy coherence, what is an energy contagion and why are you such a good one?
I love this research. Now, this was not on my radar before I wrote the book, but we've all seen these times of mass hysteria. And there are examples throughout history. In the 1930s, when Hitler came to power, he had these Nuremberg rallies where they had up to 1 million people in these huge stadiums in Nuremberg, and they were all just chanting Heil Hitler, working themselves up into this frenzy to prepare for World War II. The Salem witch trials are another example. Another more recent example is when we went to war in Iraq in 2002. There was this mass emotional contagion where Congress voted to go to war over the just really riding over the advice of all the foreign policy analysts who said, hey, there's nothing there, don't do this. But there's some kind of mass movement towards war. So there are these mass movements in consciousness. Some of them are very powerful and positive. The Summer of Love. In 1982, I was in Central Park, the largest rally in American history up to that point. And we were rallying for an end to nuclear war and the nuclear standoff between the Soviet Union and the U.S. And so this huge movement, there were these huge movements in consciousness, the Summer of Love, all of these times when either for really violent aims like the Nazi Party or for peace in other instances, people had these huge experiences of mass emotional contagion. And so the researchers say that emotions are as contagious as the flu or as any kind of infectious disease. Emotions are contagious. You can catch them from the people around you. And in long-running studies, they found that if the people around you are negative, they will infect you with those negative emotions, and you will then infect other people with them. In one mass study, they manipulated the Facebook feed of people, and they were able to produce emotional contagion in 780,000 people on Facebook 3 years ago by just tweaking their feeds to be a little bit emotionally darker or a little bit emotionally lighter. So I want to make us agents of emotional infection for positive emotions. I want you to wake up in the morning and be so full of love. I want you to be so addicted to the serotonin and dopamine and other wonderful neurochemicals in your brain. I talk a lot in the book about anandamide, also called the bliss molecule, and how it floods our neurotransmitters when we're meditating and doing this kind of meditation. And so you entrain yourself to that in the morning. You then become an agent of emotional contagion all around you the whole day. And the research shows you don't just affect the people around you one layer out, but that they affect people around them another layer out. And so we're infecting other people with emotional contagion. So my dream is that this book, now again, we've had people we had one review on Amazon. We've got all these 5-star reviews on Amazon within the first few days. The first day, like the book only shipped the day before, the next day, one woman posted saying, I got the book yesterday. I've done nothing but read the book ever since. And it's like just blowing my mind. And the woman said, I've never really taken meditation seriously before. Now I'm committing to a daily meditation practice. So we want this emotional contagion that this book, Mind to Matter, is producing right now to literally infect millions and millions and millions of people and show them that these ways of thinking about their lives they've had, that I am this local mind, I have these limitations, I can't create, I can't manifest, my dreams don't come true, that when you discard those old stories about your life, when you align with non-local mind, that you become a remarkable creator of emotional reality around you and physical reality inside your body and out. And literally, we can produce emotional contagion and a movement of positivity and joy and enlightenment that can shape and shift the entire world. It's within our grasp now as a species to make these massive changes. In the afterword of the book, I say, the future of the planet and the human race and our species will look nothing like the past. We're in the middle of this tectonic shift in human affairs and all over the globe as we spread the emotional contagion of positivity and joy and enlightenment, not just in our own little communities, but throughout our whole society. And so I believe we're in the middle of this huge shift in consciousness, and I want to do all I can to help catalyze as much of that as I possibly can through my interviews like this, through writing, through appearances, through workshops. I mean, I want people to get this message and act on it and see the shifts it produces, not only in their own lives, but in the whole community and the world that we live in.
Woohoo! It's the whole reason we have this show. Absolutely. So we're just releasing right now what we call is our magical morning routine for busy spiritual seekers. We've got meditation in there. We've got tapping in there to help people get into coherence, to help people do some of this clearing work. I want everybody to be a metronome. You talk in the book how you put metronomes completely out of sync. 3 minutes later, a whole room of metronomes are in sync. Is there something else we want to do first thing in the morning to help start to get us in coherence?
What I do is I do two things. When I wake up in the morning, I first of all tap and release anything and everything that stands between me and inner peace. And so I breathe and tap and I imagine releasing anything and everything that stands between me and a piece, first of all. So you first need to release, because if you have impediments, there's also a phenomenon in energy psychology we call psychological reversal. And we can measure this. When your energy field isn't flowing properly, then you can have intentions, but they don't work. So you have to release those obstacles first. We have you tap on these reversal points to release those. So that's the first thing. Then, after I've done the releasing, I then meditate. I spend maybe 10, 20 minutes re-dropping in deep. And then once you've dropped in deep, you're then in that state of flow. You're in that state of emergence. You're in that state of oneness with non-local mind. You basically list yourself out, and you then start your day from there, and you are a very different person than if you hadn't done that. So that's what I do every morning.
Woohoo! So from there, if I was to take my coaching hat, Dawson, and I was to put it on you, and we want to help people to get into the highest possible alignment, get in the flow with non-local mind, on top of what you recommended here, what's one homework assignment would you give people today?
Well, in the book, I list a whole group of things you can do, and there isn't any one size fits all. For some people, it's yoga. Yoga puts them in the flow. For other people, it's a walk on the beach or a walk in nature, a walk in the woods, or walk in whatever part of nature they have. And even if you live in a city, there are parks there. In New York, there's Central Park. In many cities, there are nature trails, there are rivers you can go to. So for some people, it's movement. For some people, it's exciting dance. Dance brings them into this space. For some people, it is grounding themselves. It's just walking barefoot on the earth. For some people, it might be tapping. For some people, it might be a breathing exercise, deep diaphragmatic breathing. For some people, it may be chanting. So it's less one thing you do than looking at the whole range of things you can do and making a commitment to do the one that brings you the closest to that feeling of flow. For some people, it's sports. Athletes can get into that space by using their sport. But whatever works for you, whatever produces that burst of positive neurochemicals in your brain, commit to doing that one thing every day. So know what it is, experiment with different ones, and then do that one thing to start yourself off every day. Now, when you do that, you start to condition your mind and you condition your body to expect to feel that good. So you anticipate feeling that good. You then are motivated to return yourself to that good feeling state when other things happen in the day to disturb that state. So anchoring yourself every day, every morning especially, in that good feeling state is really important. Do not turn on your smartphone and check your status, check Facebook, check Instagram, check your email. Do not do that first thing in the morning. Give yourself space for consciousness in the morning, and all of those other things can wait. Those are all the outside world talking to you. Mm-hmm. You don't want the outside world to talk to you until you've talked to your mind and your body and given it instructions for how you want your day to unfold. You then like this morning. I've had I've one problem in my life right now. There's a business venture I'm involved in, and as a result of that business venture, I should have been getting a check for $30,000 next week. Now things have gone wrong. I'm not getting a check for $30,000 next week, and that was something that we'd expected to have happen in next week's cash flow. So I've been wondering how to deal with this. I was in meditation this morning, and this brilliant solution came to me that helps all the people involved in this seemingly difficult situation. Everyone's going to get what they want, and I'm going to get the $30,000 in a different way. So I could never have come up with that solution laterally with my left brain, but in meditation, the solution just floated into consciousness.
Woohoo! Speaking about floating into consciousness, what does a 1974 Jensen Healy have to do with anything?
Well, I had not one, but I had two Jensen Healys, and when I began to experiment and look at the studies on mind to matter, I was really aware and intrigued by the four forces of physics. So these are the foundation of physics, the foundation of our knowledge of science right now. And so we have these four forces of physics, and I began to look at, can human intention change the four forces. And I have now found evidence that it can change all four of them. And one of them, I had tried to get some of my more uh, my brighter colleagues to experiment with Geiger counters and see if intention could affect the rate of nuclear decay. And I hadn't been able to get anyone to do these experiments, so I eventually ordered my own Geiger counter, my own radioactive source, and thought I'd give this a try myself. And so the great day arrived. I set up the whole experiment and set up my Geiger counter, measure the rate of radioactive decay of radioactive substance, and this should be impossible to change. Like some radioactive substances, like cesium, is a substance they use for atomic clocks, and the cesium atomic clock is accurate to 1 second every 20 million years. Okay, so the rate of radioactive decay is an extremely stable rate. When I just sat down and intended in a coherent state, I could change the rate of radioactive decay by about 15%. That was amazing.
Huge.
So I jumped into my red Jensen heliop. I did that first experiment, and I just drove at high speed down the road, just screaming and yelling. And I was just amazed that it was possible to do that. So again, that's just one pilot project in the book. We have to do randomized controlled trials and replicate them, and a lot more has to happen before we can announce that. But it's amazing what you can do with your mind when you're in that state of coherence.
We have somewhere in the house, I believe it's in. I've got to dig through my boxes. We have a Geiger counter from when we lived on Hawaii, which was soon after Fukushima went off. And so I want to take that, get to our smoke detector, and see if we can play with that and see what we can come up with. I was thinking from the Healy perspective as well, since you're talking about laws of physics. I've got to assume I was well, I still have the disease, but it's in remission, an MGB-ophile. And that had Lucas Electric. And I have to assume that shifting your energy can shift how well the old sports car's electric system works.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are experiments showing that we can affect electromagnetic fields with our minds. And in one study done by the late Joy Jones of the University of California at Irvine, I have in the book as well, they were able to change electromagnetism by 22% just by intention. So absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. So on that note, what advice would you give to parents to help their kids start to understand this today?
The best thing you can do for your kids is to be all you can be yourself. And teaching by example is the best possible thing. I have 3 kids, and I know that I just love seeing where they've gone in their lives. And so just being that person, being your full potential is the best thing you can do. And my kids have all gone in very different directions. They become their own people. They're doing their own thing, 3 very different things, but they have a sense of empowerment and a sense of potential and a sense of being creators. In fact, they're scary creators. I mean, they can just create stuff out of the ether in a flash. And so I think being that person, yourself, is the most powerful thing you can do. And then as you liberate your potential, you show them it's possible for them to liberate their potential. Also be aware of your self-talk. Are you saying, oh, we can't do this? Or people in our family are this way? Really? How sure are you of that? And many parents are unconsciously building all kinds of limiting self-talk into the brains of their kids. In our live workshops, we do an exercise where we help find all the parental instructions that have been dropped into you as a kid, and people wind up with long lists of information that they acquired as a kid. Things like money doesn't grow on trees, all the good men are taken, the apple never falls far from the tree, the higher you rise, the harder you fall. I mean, people have all these things in their subconscious minds, and then they're unconsciously living all those limiting beliefs and acting them out in their lives. So we help them find those in our live workshops and tap them away, release them, and let go of them. So the thing you can do is clean up your own act and watch any limiting belief you have and really say, I remember when I was parenting my kids, I had a whole long list of things I said to myself, I remember being treated that way as a kid when I was 2 or 3 or 5. I will simply not treat my kids the same way. I remember one time, my youngest boy, Alexander, um, we were in Trader Joe's, this big food chain, and we would go shopping there every day. And my daughter Rexana was there as well with us. So Alex was about 3, Rexana was about 12, and we were shopping and in Trader Joe's, and it was Halloween, and so the staff had got a whole bunch of Halloween balloons, these yellow and black balloons, and they were helium balloons. They were giving them out to young kids, and so we walked in there. They gave my son a balloon and they tied it up to his wrist. And then, being a 3-year-old, he was like picking at this knot, trying to untie it. And we were saying to him, "Now, Alex, don't untie that string from your wrist, because if you do, it's a helium balloon. It'll float away, and you won't have it anymore." But in the car on the way home, he succeeded in untying the balloon from his wrist. And as we opened the car door and got out, he was in his car seat. He'd untied the balloon blew out and hit a sharp leaf and popped. And he watched his beloved balloon pop, and he just began to bawl his eyes out. He jumped into my arms. He threw his arms around my neck. He buried his head in my neck, and he was just crying like his heart was going to break. And so at that moment, Michael, I had all of these voices in my head coming up of all the things my parents would have said to me, like, "Now you see how important it is to listen to daddy, to listen to your big sister, and not untie the balloon. You see how important it is to follow instructions." And I just realized that all of that stuff that my parents would have said, I needed to not say to my kid and just let him have his feelings. So he had his feelings. He cried for about 5 seconds. He then looked up. His sister was carrying bags of groceries into the house. He was like curious what she was doing. He jumped out of my arms, ran after her, and that was the end of it. He'd released his trauma in about 5 seconds of just feeling his feelings, because I hadn't said all of those things to him, blamed him, shamed him. So I had taken care of them, and I had not said all of those things. And so that's what you can do for your kids. Do not pass along the negative programming you got. And then, sure, they're going to get hurt and traumatized, and bad things will happen. They'll cry for 3 seconds. They'll be over it. They'll flush the emotions through them. And then they will not be in my classes when they're 35 years old. Saying, "Dawson, please take care of all the baggage I got from my parents when I was 5. So that's what you can do for your kids.
Oh my God, that's a woohoo! I'm watching a movie right now. I don't even know how old it is. It's probably pretty recent. The King's Speech.
Oh, love it.
And he, the Duke of York, had been imprinted by his father, the king, and had developed a stammer. I'm looking over next to me. I'm looking at this water right here. I'm thinking of your son. I'm thinking of water. I'm thinking of energy, how we can imprint this stuff, how we are made of water, and we can imprint ourselves. And if we get this concept of imprinting and a water molecule, how it changes everything.
You know, I'm now blessing my food and blessing my water before each meal. I used to do that sometimes, and I do it all the time, because in the research I present in the book, researchers found that water molecules, water, of course, is a very simple substance, has 1 oxygen molecule, 2 hydrogens, and the measure of the angle of the at which they bond, we see the 2 hydrogens hanging off the oxygen atom, and that bonding angle over here is 104.5 degrees, and that's been measured for a century. We've known this for a long time, and so we know that H2O always bonds at that bonding angle between the big oxygen, the 2 little hydrogen atoms, is always 104.5 degrees, except that after you take your water and bless it, it isn't. It changes the molecular angle of the water. And when you take that blessed water and water plants with them, they have more chlorophyll in them. They grow faster. They grow higher. So all kinds of things happen to your body when you bless your food and bless your water.
Woohoo! On that note, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, Dawson, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Well, I think for me, being in and being one with the universe, that just totally shifts me. I may not feel all that happy or centered or balanced when I wake up, but after I tune into the universe, I really change. And so I tune in to non-local mind. I tune into my sense of guidance. I tune into the sense of being part of this this infinite benevolent universe much greater than myself. So I don't know if that's a person, Michael. I don't think of it as a personalized God. I don't imagine an old man in the sky with a long gray beard.
Mhm.
I just think of it as being that emergent property of universe. But I know that that thing loves me. That thing cares about me. And so when I tune into that, when I feel as I'm attuned to that, that is, I think, the person or the being that totally shifts my reality every day. Then I'm much nicer to my coworkers. I'm much nicer to people around me. I'm centered. I'm much kinder to people. When people do like, I'll meet somebody and they're angry and they're mean. I'll just love them.
I love it.
And that's a very hard force to resist.
And from now on, you may even have spare Kleenex with you for them as well. On that note, where can people go to find your beautiful book, Mind to Matter? And I am serious. I love it. I love it. You're not getting my paws off of it. If you want me to say it, everyone should get 10 copies. There's no shoulda, woulda, couldas. It'd be great to get 10 copies of the book and give it to everyone you know, because if we all get in coherence, if we all become metronomes together, we can change this place.
We can, and we're changing it by our thoughts all the time. And so go to mindtomatter.club because that is the book's launch page, and you get a webinar with me. You get all kinds of links to other useful items. Like I made a series of 7 free meditations, one to accompany each of the 7 chapters of the book, and they're absolutely free. And you get a whole bunch of other goodies. So go to Mind to Matter. So MIND, Mind to Matter. But it's not .com. It's .club, .club, and that's where you get the meditations as well as a whole bunch of other things. So please do share this with people. You know, just one last story, and it's a difficult story to tell. But in in my life, I've sometimes done things that I regret, or didn't do things I regret. And Michael, I had a friend a few years ago
Mhm.
who committed suicide, and I realized that I had not shared with him meditation, tapping, any of the stuff I knew. I'd hung out with him, but I never told him about. I didn't want to like like be pushing my stuff on him. But he committed suicide, and none of us in our social circle knew that I was taking a walk with him about 3 months before that. We were taking a walk in a park, and we've been talking about going kayaking later on in the summer, and everything seemed okay. I was with him and his girlfriend, and a bunch of other people. We were just having a good time. And so I then said to myself, what time have I known something that could help somebody and I haven't shared with them? So that was one of my big regrets is I did not teach him tapping, did not teach him meditation right there
Mhm.
in that walk in the park. So a few months after he committed suicide, I was driving from San Francisco to LA. It's about a 7-hour drive, and I was in my car driving to LA to give a keynote speech there, and I got a call. It was his girlfriend, and she was suicidal. Her suicidal tendencies had been triggered by his committing suicide a few months before, but I had taught her to tap. So I tapped her with her
Yeah.
on the phone for over an hour, and she didn't commit suicide that night. She then went on to clean up a whole bunch of emotional trauma in her childhood, and she's thriving today. So I asked myself, when have I not shared with people? When did I not buy them that book that could make the difference in their lives? When did I not uh, give them a link to the workshop where they could learn eco meditation or tapping? When did I not give them a link to a coach who could help them? So I am so passionate now when I feel that urge. Give the person the gift of what you know. Don't say, they'll find it by themselves. You may be the person who gives them the book, who gives them the website link. Let your friends know, and it can make all the difference in their lives. They can't transform if we're just not sharing what we know really helps us. This is what I know helps me, and science tells me this is so. I know this stuff works. I know it can utterly transform a person's lives. I've seen it transform thousands of people in the course of my research, and I have this passion for seeing it reach every single person in the world. So please help me with this mission. Don't let people suffer just because you were silent and said nothing. Just share this with everyone you know. Buy those 10 copies. Email that link to mindbetter.club to people. Share it on Facebook. Share it on social media. Share it on Instagram. Share it. Tweet about it, because it does make a difference to people, and it makes a difference in the world.
Woohoo! And make a post a review on Amazon. That helps tremendously as well. Carrie Korenko, she was my group project partner in grad school, and she committed suicide a year afterwards, and didn't get to have these conversations as well. So couldn't agree with you more. So come on over to mindtomatter.club if you want to find out more or get the book. And if you don't remember mindtomatter.club, come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you over to mindtomatter.club as well. Quick question. Is it 2 T-O or 2 with a 2?
T-O, Mind to Matter, is the same as the book title, mindtomatter.club.
Fantastic. Any last words of wisdom before maybe you can lead us in a little eco meditation here?
Just to let go of your limitations. When you find yourself saying, I can't do that, or my life is this way, those stories are usually not true. I've done workshops with literally tens of thousands of people now, both online workshops, live workshops, and people tell me their stories of limitation. I hear them say these things. You just acquired that at some point during your life. It's just a piece of wisdom you got from a parent, a teacher, an aunt, an uncle, your tribe. Let go of your limitations. Let yourself live in love every day. Live the great version of you. Live the most elevated version of you. When you have 8 emotions going on, some of them are negative, some of them are positive, pick the elevated ones, pick the highest ones, and train yourself to be that high version of you. You deserve to be who you are and what the universe thinks you are. I can assure you, the universe, great non-local mind, does not think you are a small and limited person at all. It does not have that version of you imprinted in the cosmos. The cosmos has this vast version of the love that's possible in your life, the health that's possible in your life, the abundance that's possible in your life. Live that version of you. And when you hear yourself saying those things that make you small, make you limited, tap, breathe, meditate, release them. They aren't true.
Woohoo!
I've learned how to do that.
We'll trade. I got to get a laugh like yours. Unbelievable and so beautifully contagious. So would you mind leading us in a little eco meditation?
Close your eyes and feel your body.
Unless you're driving down the road, do this afterwards.
Feel your hands, feel your feet. Notice your breath flowing effortlessly in and out. And imagine yourself breathing through your heart. Breathing through the area of your physical heart. And as you breathe in and out through your heart, slow your breathing down. Make your breathing slower and slower. Until you're breathing 6 seconds per in-breath and 6 seconds per out-breath. Breathing in 6 seconds through your heart. Breathing out 6 seconds through your heart. And now notice your tongue inside your mouth. And relax your tongue completely on the floor of your mouth. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Breathing through your heart. 6 seconds in. 6 seconds out. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. And imagine a big empty space behind your eyes. Big empty space behind your eyes. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Breathing in 6 seconds through your heart. Breathing out 6 seconds through your heart. And as you breathe in and out through your heart, send a beam of energy from your heart to a person or place that makes you feel wonderful. Send a beam of heart energy to this person or this place. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Big empty space behind your eyes. 6-second in breaths. And 6-second out breaths. Feel the energy going from your heart to this person who makes you feel really good. Tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Big empty space behind your eyes. 6-second in-breaths through your heart. And 6-second out-breaths through your heart. Now gently draw your own heart energy back into your body. Detach it and feel it now completely inside your body. And now direct the energy to a part of your body that's in pain, or a part of your body that is suffering, or a part of your body you feel ashamed of, or a part of your body you don't like. Bathe that part of your body in your own heart energy. Now prepare to bring your awareness back to your environment, back to the here and now. With the next 3 breaths, prepare to open your eyes, look around you, feel your hands, feel your feet. And on the 3rd breath, open your eyes. Notice anything yellow in the room around you. Notice anything green nearby. Notice anything round in your environment. Just welcome yourself back into your body and welcome yourself back into the here and now. Because these elevated states are powerful. We know that when we do this, we raise our immune function, we decrease our cortisol, we improve physiological functioning, and then we need to be people who can really work effectively in the world around us. So we both induce these elevated states, and we want to be effective and do things in the world around us. So we return, look around us, bring ourselves back into our reality, and then in that space, we can be effective agents of that wonderful, positive emotional contagion in the world around us.
Woohoo! Yellow, green,
Oh, very good.
and round. My little mascot turtle helping me to go slowly. Thank you, Dawson. This has been phenomenal. I'm a little bit zonked out now in the most beautiful way, but this has been phenomenal. Your book was a true treasure and a treat. You know, I've read probably 800 books for this show, and this has been one of the absolute most fun, and I am so grateful for the work you're doing. It's so important, and this one's a life changer. This book right here, because it hits the people who need it most, which is the people who are stuck in local and going that that's all there is. And this is just page after page after page. You're like, I caramba, I give up. There's got to be something more here, and I see it. And I can do something about it.
Yes, absolutely, you can.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, got to crank it up for the finish. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get mind to matter, and begin creating your own reality with your mind today. And shine bright. Woohoo!
Bless you and thank you. I echo that sentiment. Shine bright.
Love it, love it, love it, Dawson. Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Love you, love your work, love your community, and let's go change the world together.
Woohoo! Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!